Welcome to the Sleepy Mind channel. Tonight we will slowly explore the quiet science of how your eyes turn light into sight. There is something deeply fascinating about the fact that your brain never directly sees the outside world. It never touches sunlight itself. It never looks across a landscape or watches colors floating through the air. Instead, everything you have ever seen begins as light, moving silently through space before entering your eyes. At this very moment, light is reflecting from every surface around you. It reflects from walls, blankets, windows, furniture, skin, clouds, and distant buildings. Every object quietly sends information outward through reflected light, almost like invisible signals constantly spreading through the environment. Your eyes gather those signals continuously without any effort or conscious awareness. In complete silence, your body performs one of the most advanced biological processes found anywhere in nature. Tonight, we will follow the path of light as it enters the eye, passes through delicate layers of tissue, triggers chemical reactions inside tiny cells, and eventually becomes electrical activity traveling toward the brain. Along the way, we will explore how the retina detects light, how specialized cells respond to brightness and color, and how the brain slowly builds the visual world you experience every waking moment. If you enjoy calm science stories like these, feel free to like and subscribe. More videos are posted weekly. You can also explore the playlists on the channel for more relaxing stories about science, nature, history, space, and the hidden systems shaping the world around us. One of the most remarkable things about vision is that the world you experience is not actually stored inside your eyes at all. The eye gathers information, but the experience of sight is built gradually through biology, chemistry, electricity, and interpretation. In many ways, vision resembles a quiet translation system. Light travels through the environment as physical energy, and your nervous system slowly transforms that energy into shape, movement, color, depth, and awareness. Humans often think of vision as immediate because it feels effortless. You open your eyes, and the world simply appears. Yet behind that simple experience is an enormous chain of coordinated biological events unfolding continuously every second of your life. Tiny adjustments happen automatically. Cells react instantly to changing light levels. Signals move rapidly through living tissue. The brain organizes incoming information into a stable picture while the outside world constantly changes. Long before modern science understood vision, humans were fascinated by the mystery of sight. Ancient civilizations debated whether vision came from light entering the eye or from energy somehow leaving the eye itself. The question remained mysterious for centuries because sight feels so natural that the hidden complexity behind it is easy to overlook. Only gradually did scientists begin understanding that vision depends entirely upon light entering the eye from the outside world. Everything begins with light traveling through the environment. Light moves extraordinarily quickly, crossing enormous distances in almost no time at all. Sunlight reaching your eyes tonight may have left the surface of the sun around 8 minutes earlier, before crossing space and entering the Earth's atmosphere. Indoor light travels from lamps or screens towards surrounding surfaces before reflecting outward again into your eyes. Even in dim conditions, tiny amounts of reflected light continue carrying information through the environment. Objects themselves do not usually send out visible images. Instead, they reflect certain wavelengths of light while absorbing others. A green leaf reflects green wavelengths more strongly than other colors. Dark surfaces absorb more light, while bright surfaces reflect more. The visible world around you is therefore built from patterns of reflected light, constantly moving outward from surrounding objects. Your eyes function almost like highly sensitive biological receivers, collecting these reflected patterns. The process happens so naturally that most people rarely stop to consider it. Yet every visible detail depends entirely upon light successfully reaching the eye. Without light, vision disappears because the visual system has no information to process. One especially remarkable thing about reflected light is that it carries enormous amounts of information at once. Shape, brightness, texture, distance, movement, and color all become embedded within the light entering the eye. A quiet room at night may appear calm and simple, yet the light reaching your eyes still contains extraordinary complexity hidden within it. The process of vision begins at the surface of the eye itself. Light approaches the curved outer layer before entering carefully organized biological structures designed to gather and guide incoming light deeper into the visual system. Every part of the eye contributes to this process with remarkable coordination and precision. The average person spends most of life depending on sight, without ever thinking about how unusual the process truly is. Your eyes never actually capture tiny pictures of the world the way a camera stores images on a screen. Instead, your visual system constantly rebuilds the environment around you through streams of electrical information moving through living cells. The world you experience is constructed moment by moment through coordinated biological activity, unfolding with incredible speed. Even simple tasks rely on this hidden system. Reading a sentence, recognizing a familiar face, watching rain move across a window, or noticing moonlight across a quiet room all depend upon reflected light successfully reaching the eye and being transformed into signals the brain can interpret. Every visual experience begins with light traveling through space before entering your eyes. Researchers often describe light as both a wave and a particle because it behaves in unusual ways that challenged scientific understanding for centuries. Yet despite the complexity of physics behind light itself, the eye responds to it continuously and automatically. Tiny structures inside your visual system detect these incoming patterns without conscious effort, allowing sight to feel smooth and immediate, even though the underlying biology is extraordinarily complex. The eye must also function across constantly changing conditions. Bright sunlight, dim evening light, candlelight, fog, shadows, and artificial lighting all create different visual environments. Yet your eyes continuously adjust in the background without requiring thought or attention. The visual system remains active every waking moment, quietly balancing incoming light while maintaining stable perception of the world around you. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, reflected light continues moving softly through the room around you. Your eyes continue gathering information automatically without any effort or conscious awareness. Tiny biological systems remain active every second, transforming invisible waves of light into the rich experience of sight that accompanies nearly every moment of waking life. The process of vision begins long before the brain becomes aware of anything at all. before shapes, colors, movement, or detail can appear in your conscious experience. Light first has to enter the eye itself. Every image you have ever seen begins with this quiet step. Tiny waves of reflected light move through the environment and approach the front surface of the eye, carrying information gathered from the world around you. At the center of the eye is a dark circular opening known as the pupil. Most people think of the pupil as a black spot in the middle of the eye, yet it is not actually a solid structure at all. It is an opening through which light passes deeper into the visual system. The darkness of the pupil comes from the fact that light entering the eye is mostly absorbed rather than reflected outward again. The pupil functions almost like a carefully controlled doorway, regulating how much light enters the eye at any given moment. This regulation is extremely important because light conditions around you constantly change throughout the day and night. Bright sunlight contains enormous amounts of incoming light, while evening shadows and dim rooms contain far less. The visual system must continuously adapt to these shifting conditions in order to maintain stable sight. Surrounding the pupil is the iris, the colored portion of the eye visible from the outside. The iris contains small muscles that automatically adjust the size of the pupil depending on surrounding light levels. In bright conditions, these muscles narrow the opening to reduce incoming light. In dim conditions, they widen the opening to allow more light inside. The adjustment happens automatically without requiring conscious thought. Humans often compare the pupil to the adjustable opening of a camera because both systems regulate incoming light. Yet the biological process inside the eye is remarkably dynamic and continuous. Your pupils constantly respond to changing brightness even during ordinary daily life. Walking from a dark hallway into bright sunlight may trigger rapid narrowing, while entering a dim room may cause the pupils to slowly widen over several moments. One fascinating aspect of this system is how quickly it operates. Tiny muscles inside the iris respond almost immediately to changing brightness levels. The eye continuously measures incoming light and adjusts accordingly, helping protect sensitive tissues deeper inside the visual system, while still allowing enough light for clear perception. The amount of light entering the eye strongly influences visual experience. In bright conditions, smaller pupils improve sharpness and reduce overwhelming brightness. In darker environments, larger pupils help gather additional light, allowing the visual system to continue functioning even when illumination becomes limited. This constant balancing process helps maintain useful vision across a wide range of environments. The visual system also adjusts differently depending upon context. A sudden bright flash may trigger rapid pupil narrowing almost instantly. More gradual lighting changes often produce slower adaptation. The system remains flexible because the outside world itself is constantly changing. Clouds move across the sky. Sunlight shifts throughout the day. Artificial lights turn on and off. Shadows move quietly across rooms and landscapes. One especially remarkable thing about the pupil is how much information it reveals about the activity of the nervous system. Doctors often examine pupil reactions because the response reflects communication between the eye and the brain. Changes in pupil size may provide clues about neurological function, light sensitivity, or broader activity within the body itself. The eye must carefully balance light intake because too much brightness can overwhelm the visual system, while too little light limits available information. The pupil therefore acts almost like an automatic regulator, quietly maintaining stable conditions deeper inside the eye. This regulation happens continuously every waking moment of your life. Even emotional states can sometimes influence pupil size. Excitement, fear, concentration, surprise, and attention may subtly affect the nervous system, controlling the iris muscles. The eyes therefore reflect not only external light conditions, but also certain internal biological responses occurring throughout the body. At night, pupils generally widen more because lower light levels reduce available visual information. This allows additional reflected light to enter the eye and improves sensitivity under dim conditions. Even so, vision in darkness operates differently from vision in bright daylight because the visual system must rely upon different cellular responses deeper inside the retina. The front surface of the eye also plays an important role during this process. The curved outer layer helps begin directing incoming light toward deeper structures within the eye. Light entering at different angles must still be guided accurately toward the visual system waiting farther inside. Every layer contributes quietly to the process of transforming light into sight. Most people rarely notice their pupils changing because the adjustment feels completely automatic. Yet this hidden activity never truly stops. Every shift in surrounding brightness triggers subtle muscular responses, shaping how much light continues deeper into the eye. The visual system remains active constantly, quietly balancing incoming information from the environment around you. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, your pupils continue responding to the lighting conditions around you. Tiny muscles inside the iris adjust automatically while reflected light passes through the dark opening at the center of the eye. Without effort or awareness, your visual system continues regulating incoming light every second, preparing information for the next stages of sight deeper within the eye itself. The amount of light surrounding you is constantly changing, even when those changes seem subtle or easy to ignore. Morning sunlight grows brighter by the minute as the sun rises higher into the sky. Clouds drift across the atmosphere and soften the brightness reaching the ground. Indoor lamps switch on and off. Shadows stretch slowly across rooms as the day moves toward evening. Yet despite these constant changes, your visual system quietly adjusts itself in the background almost continuously. One of the most important parts of this adjustment happens through changes in the size of the pupil. In bright environments, the pupil becomes smaller to reduce the amount of incoming light entering the eye. In darker conditions, the pupil widens to allow more light to pass inward. This balancing process helps maintain stable vision across dramatically different environments without requiring conscious effort. Humans often notice this effect after walking outside on a bright afternoon after spending time in a dim room. For a brief moment, the world may appear overwhelmingly bright, while the eyes rapidly adapt to the sudden increase in light. The pupils narrow quickly in response, reducing the intensity of incoming light and helping restore comfortable vision. The opposite happens in darkness. Entering a dark room after standing in bright sunlight may initially make it difficult to see clearly. The pupils gradually widen, allowing more reflected light to enter the eye. Over time, vision improves as the visual system becomes more sensitive to dim conditions. This adjustment may take several moments, because the eye and retina are slowly adapting together. The muscles responsible for controlling the pupil are extremely small, yet they operate with remarkable precision. Tiny circular muscles inside the iris contract or relax automatically, depending on surrounding brightness. The system responds constantly to incoming light levels, almost like a biological balancing mechanism, quietly maintaining stable visual conditions. Bright conditions create unique challenges for the visual system, because excessive light can overwhelm sensitive cells deeper inside the eye. Reducing the size of the pupil limits incoming brightness and improves visual sharpness at the same time. Smaller pupils often create clearer focus because less scattered light enters the eye from different angles. In dim environments, however, the visual system faces the opposite problem. There may not be enough reflected light available for clear detection. Widening the pupil helps gather additional light from the environment, improving sensitivity, even though visual sharpness may decrease slightly under darker conditions. One fascinating aspect of pupil adjustment is how automatic the process feels. Most people rarely notice their pupils changing throughout the day because the nervous system manages these adjustments silently in the background. The eye responds continuously without requiring attention or decision-making. Tiny muscular changes happen naturally, while vision remains stable and uninterrupted. Scientists sometimes describe this system as a form of biological adaptation, because the visual system constantly modifies itself according to surrounding conditions. Brightness levels shift continuously throughout ordinary life, and the eyes must remain flexible enough to function across a wide range of environments. Light levels also influence how the world feels emotionally and psychologically. Bright sunlight often creates a sense of alertness and clarity, while dim evening light tends to feel calmer and quieter. Part of this effect comes from the way the nervous system responds to changing brightness levels throughout the day. The eyes are deeply connected to broader biological rhythms inside the body. The pupil does more than simply react to light. Emotional states may also influence its size. Fear, surprise, concentration, curiosity, and excitement can sometimes trigger subtle pupil changes through activity in the nervous system. The eyes therefore reflect both external conditions and internal biological responses at the same time. At night, pupil widening becomes especially important because darkness dramatically reduces available visual information. Streetlights, moonlight, distant windows, and faint reflections provide far less illumination than daylight conditions. The visual system compensates by increasing light intake as much as possible, while relying more heavily on specialized cells designed for low-light environments. The process of adjustment never completely stops because the environment itself never remains perfectly stable. Even sitting quietly indoors, your eyes continue responding to small changes in brightness caused by screens, shifting shadows, passing cars outside, or movement within the room. The visual system remains active every waking moment, constantly recalibrating incoming light levels. One especially remarkable thing about this system is how efficiently it protects the eye while still preserving useful vision. Too much light could overwhelm delicate structures deeper inside the retina. Too little light would limit available information about the environment. The pupil quietly maintains balance between these extremes through endless small adjustments happening every second. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, Tiny muscles inside your eyes continue responding to the light around you. Your pupils narrow and widen automatically, while reflected light enters the visual system in carefully regulated amounts. Without effort or awareness, your eyes continue balancing brightness and sensitivity, quietly preparing incoming light for the next stages of vision deeper within the retina itself. Once light passes through the pupil, it continues deeper into the eye, toward one of the most important structures in the entire visual system. This structure is known as the lens. The lens plays a central role in vision because it helps focus incoming light so that visual information can be directed accurately toward the retina at the back of the eye. Without this careful focusing process, the world would appear blurry and unstable rather than sharp and detailed. The lens sits just behind the pupil and iris, suspended inside the eye in a remarkably delicate position. It is transparent, flexible, and carefully shaped to bend incoming light toward the retina. Although small, the lens performs an extraordinary amount of work throughout every waking moment of your life. Humans often compare the lens of the eye to the lens inside a camera because both systems focus incoming light onto a sensitive surface. Yet the biological lens inside the eye is far more dynamic than most ordinary camera lenses. Rather than remaining fixed, the lens can actually change shape continuously depending upon what you are looking at. This ability to change shape is essential because objects exist at many different distances from the eye. Reading a nearby page, watching rain outside a distant window, or looking across a landscape all require different focusing adjustments. The visual system must constantly adapt so that incoming light reaches the retina with proper alignment. When viewing nearby objects, the lens becomes slightly thicker and more curved. This increased curvature bends incoming light more strongly, helping nearby details remain clear and focused. When viewing distant objects, the lens becomes flatter, allowing light traveling from farther away to focus properly at the back of the eye. Tiny muscles surrounding the lens control these adjustments automatically. These muscles subtly tighten or relax, altering the shape of the flexible lens depending on where attention is directed. Most people rarely notice this process because the adjustments happen quietly and continuously throughout ordinary life. Scientists refer to this focusing process as accommodation. The word describes the eye's ability to adapt focus for different viewing distances. Accommodation happens constantly while reading, walking, driving, or simply observing the world around you. The visual system remains active every second, quietly refining focus as your environment changes. One especially remarkable thing about the lens is its transparency. Light must pass through it clearly in order for sharp vision to occur. The lens contains specialized proteins arranged in highly organized patterns that minimize scattering and help preserve clarity. Unlike many tissues in the body, the lens contains no blood vessels running directly through it because visible vessels would interfere with incoming light. The shape of the lens strongly influences visual sharpness. If incoming light is not focused correctly onto the retina, details may appear blurred. This can happen naturally as the eye changes with age, or when the shape of the eye and lens do not align perfectly together. Glasses and contact lenses work by adjusting the path of incoming light before it enters the eye, helping restore clearer focus. The process of focusing happens with astonishing speed. Your eyes may shift rapidly between nearby and distant objects many times within a single minute. Each movement requires tiny focusing adjustments occurring almost instantly. The nervous system coordinates these changes so smoothly that most people remain completely unaware of the hidden activity happening inside the eye. The lens must also cooperate closely with the pupil and surrounding structures. The pupil regulates how much light enters the eye, while the lens carefully bends that light toward the retina. Every layer of the visual system contributes to the process with remarkable coordination and precision. One fascinating aspect of the lens is how it changes gradually throughout life. In childhood, the lens is extremely flexible and adjusts focus very easily. Over time, the lens slowly becomes less flexible, making nearby focusing more difficult for many adults as they age. This natural change explains why reading glasses become common later in life. Even though the lens is small, it handles extraordinary amounts of visual information every day. Every reflected pattern of light entering your eyes passes through this transparent structure before reaching deeper layers of the visual system. Faces, landscapes, shadows, text, moonlight, and moving objects all depend upon accurate focusing inside the eye. Alignment is especially important because even small focusing errors can affect clarity. The visual system relies upon precise coordination between the cornea at the front of the eye, the pupil regulating incoming light, and the lens refining focus before light reaches the retina. Together, these structures create the sharpness and detail people experience during ordinary vision. The process feels effortless because the nervous system performs these adjustments automatically in the background. Your eyes continue refining focus continuously, while your awareness remains centered on the outside world itself, rather than the biological systems supporting sight. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, the lenses inside your eyes continue making tiny focusing adjustments automatically. Light entering through the pupils passes carefully through these transparent structures, while the visual system quietly guides incoming patterns toward the retina. Without effort or awareness, your eyes continue shaping and refining light every second, preparing it for the deeper stages of vision waiting farther inside the eye. After passing through the pupil and lens, light continues deeper into the eye until it finally reaches one of the most extraordinary structures in the entire human body. This structure is called the retina. The retina lines the back interior surface of the eye and functions as the place where light is first transformed into biological information the nervous system can understand. Although the retina is extremely thin, it contains an astonishing level of complexity. Scientists often compare it to a living layer of biological detection tissue because it contains specialized cells designed specifically to respond to incoming light. Every visual experience you have ever had depends upon the activity happening quietly inside this delicate structure. The retina sits along the back wall of the eye, almost like a curved screen, receiving focused light from the lens. Incoming light travels through the front of the eye, passes through transparent structures, and eventually reaches the retina, where detection begins. Without the retina, the eye could gather and focus light, but would have no way to convert that light into meaningful signals. One especially fascinating thing about the retina is that it is technically part of the nervous system itself. During early development before birth, retinal tissue forms from the same developing structures that eventually become the brain. In many ways, the retina functions almost like a specialized extension of the brain positioned inside the eye. The retina contains multiple layers of cells arranged with remarkable organization and precision. Different layers handle different parts of the visual process. Some cells detect light directly. Others process and organize information before signals eventually leave the eye through the optic nerve. Even at this early stage, vision already involves far more than simple light detection alone. Light reaching the retina carries enormous amounts of information from the environment around you. Patterns of brightness, movement, contrast, shape, and color all arrive together across the retinal surface. The retina must begin sorting and responding to these patterns immediately in order for useful vision to occur. Specialized light-sensitive cells inside the retina perform the first stage of this detection process. These cells respond when incoming light reaches them, beginning a chain of chemical and electrical activity that eventually leads to perception inside the brain. The retina therefore acts as the gateway where physical light first becomes biological information. Humans often imagine vision happening mainly inside the brain, yet much of the early visual process begins directly inside the retina itself. The retina does not simply receive light passively. It actively responds to incoming patterns and begins organizing information almost immediately after detection occurs. The structure of the retina supports this remarkable level of activity. Tiny cells are packed together in carefully organized arrangements, allowing the eye to respond rapidly and continuously to changing visual environments. The organization is so precise that even microscopic changes in retinal structure can strongly influence vision. One remarkable aspect of the retina is how sensitive it can be under the right conditions. Certain retinal cells are capable of responding to extremely small amounts of incoming light, allowing humans to see even under dim nighttime conditions. Other retinal cells specialize in sharper detail and color perception under brighter light. The retina must also function continuously without pause. Every waking moment, reflected light from the environment reaches the retinal surface and triggers ongoing activity inside these specialized cells. Reading text, recognizing faces, noticing movement, or watching moonlight across a quiet room all depend upon constant retinal detection and processing. The curved shape of the retina also matters greatly because it allows incoming light from different directions to spread across the visual surface in an organized way. The lens focuses light carefully so that patterns arriving from the environment align properly across the retina. Sharp vision depends heavily upon this alignment. Scientists studying the retina often describe it as one of the most energy-demanding tissues in the body because retinal cells remain active continuously. Even while resting quietly, the retina constantly processes incoming visual information from the surrounding environment. The system never fully stops while the eyes remain open. One fascinating truth about vision is that the world you experience as smooth and continuous actually begins as patterns of light striking tiny cells within the retina. At this stage, there are no recognized faces, objects, or landscapes yet. There is only incoming light, triggering organized biological responses inside a thin layer of nervous tissue at the back of the eye. The retina also helps explain why vision depends so heavily upon overall eye health. Damage to retinal tissue can strongly affect sight because these specialized cells play such a central role in transforming light into signals the brain can eventually interpret. Protecting the retina is therefore essential for preserving vision itself. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, focused light continues reaching the retinas inside your eyes. Tiny specialized cells remain active every second, detecting patterns of reflected light arriving from the environment around you. Without effort or awareness, your visual system continues transforming incoming light into biological activity deep within the delicate layers of the retina itself. Inside the retina are specialized cells responsible for one of the most important tasks in the entire visual system. These cells detect incoming light and begin transforming it into biological signals the nervous system can process. Although many different cell types exist within the retina, two major groups play especially important roles in vision. These are called rods and cones. Rod cells and cone cells each perform different visual functions, allowing the eye to operate across a wide range of conditions. Some environments contain bright, detailed light, filled with color and sharp contrast. Others are dim, shadowed, and difficult to see clearly. The visual system relies upon rods and cones working together so sight can continue under changing lighting conditions throughout the day and night. Rod cells are highly sensitive to low levels of light. They allow vision to continue functioning in dim environments where bright detail and color become harder to detect. At night, during twilight, or inside darkened rooms, rod cells become increasingly important because they respond well even when only small amounts of reflected light reach the retina. Humans often notice rod activity without realizing it. Walking through a dim hallway at night, recognizing shapes under moonlight, or detecting movement in darkness all rely heavily upon rod cells. Although nighttime vision may appear less colorful and detailed, the ability to detect general shapes and motion remains possible because rods continue responding to low light conditions. One especially remarkable thing about rod cells is their sensitivity. Under certain conditions, rods can respond to extremely small amounts of incoming light. This sensitivity helps humans navigate dim environments where brighter daytime vision would no longer function effectively. The visual system becomes quieter and softer in darkness, yet it continues gathering information through these highly specialized cells. Rod cells do not specialize in color detection. Instead, they focus more strongly on brightness, movement, and general shape. This explains why nighttime environments often appear more muted or gray compared to daylight conditions. In darkness, the visual system depends more heavily upon rod activity, while color-sensitive systems become less active. Cone cells perform a different role entirely. Cones respond best under brighter lighting conditions and are responsible for detailed vision and color perception. Reading text, recognizing fine detail, distinguishing colors, and seeing sharp images during daylight all depend heavily upon cone activity within the retina. The retina contains different types of cone cells, each responding more strongly to certain wavelengths of light. Some cones respond more actively to longer wavelengths associated with reddish tones. Others respond more strongly to medium or shorter wavelengths linked to green and blue regions of the visible spectrum. Together, These responses allow the brain to build the experience of color vision. One fascinating aspect of cones is how much they contribute to visual sharpness. Areas of the retina containing especially dense cone populations support detailed central vision, allowing people to focus carefully on faces, written words, or intricate patterns. Bright daylight conditions therefore activate systems specialized for clarity, precision, and color richness. Rod and cone cells are distributed differently across the retina depending on their function. Some retinal regions contain higher concentrations of cones, supporting detailed central vision, while broader areas contain large numbers of rods, supporting sensitivity to dim light and peripheral movement. This organization helps the visual system balance detail and sensitivity at the same time. The cooperation between rods and cones allows human vision to remain flexible across constantly changing environments. Bright sunlight, candlelight, cloudy afternoons, moonlit streets, and dim indoor rooms all create different visual demands. The retina responds by adjusting which systems contribute more strongly, depending upon available light. One especially remarkable thing about this system is how naturally it operates. Most people never consciously notice rods and cones switching roles throughout the day. Yet every change in lighting conditions influences which retinal cells contribute most strongly to perception. The visual system continuously adapts itself quietly in the background. Scientists studying retinal biology often describe rods and cones as highly specialized detectors shaped through millions of years of evolution. Their structure reflects the specific demands of vision itself. Rods maximize sensitivity in darkness, while cones maximize detail and color under brighter conditions. Together, they allow humans to experience a remarkably wide range of visual environments. The activity inside these cells never fully stops while the eyes remain open. Every second, incoming light reaches the retina and triggers responses inside rods and cones, depending upon brightness and wavelength. Signals begin forming immediately as the visual system prepares information for deeper stages of processing. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, rod cells and cone cells inside your retinas continue responding to the light around you. Some cells detect brightness and movement, while others contribute detail and color. Without effort or awareness, these tiny specialized structures continue transforming reflected light into the first stages of visual information deep within the retina itself. One of the most remarkable abilities of the human visual system is the ability to perceive color. The world around you appears filled with different shades, tones, and subtle variations because specialized cells inside the retina respond differently to incoming wavelengths of light. Sunsets glow orange and red, leaves appear green, oceans reflect blue tones, and candlelight creates warm golden color because the visual system quietly separates and interprets different forms of light entering the eye. Color vision depends mainly upon cone cells inside the retina. Unlike rod cells, which focus more strongly on brightness and low light sensitivity, cone cells specialize in detecting different wavelengths associated with color perception. These cells become especially active under brighter lighting conditions where detailed and colorful vision is most useful. Scientists generally group cone cells into three main categories based on the wavelengths they respond to most strongly. Some cones react more actively to longer wavelengths, often associated with reddish tones. Others respond more strongly to medium wavelengths connected to greens, while another group responds most strongly to shorter wavelengths linked to blue regions of visible light. Together, these overlapping responses allow the brain to interpret a wide range of colors from combinations of incoming signals. One especially fascinating thing about color is that it does not exist inside objects themselves in the way people often imagine. Objects do not contain visible color waiting to escape into the air. Instead, surfaces interact with incoming light by absorbing certain wavelengths and reflecting others. The reflected wavelengths eventually enter the eye, where cone cells respond differently depending on the light received. A green leaf, for example, reflects more green wavelengths while absorbing more red and blue portions of visible light. The cone cells responding most strongly to green wavelengths become more active, and the brain interprets this pattern as the experience of green color. Color therefore depends upon interaction between light, surfaces, retinal cells, and brain interpretation working together continuously. Humans often assume the visible world appears exactly as it truly exists outside the body. Yet color is actually a constructed experience created by the nervous system in response to incoming light patterns. Different lighting conditions can completely change how surfaces appear because the reflected wavelengths reaching the eye also change. This becomes especially noticeable during sunrise or sunset, when sunlight passes through more of the Earth's atmosphere. Shorter wavelengths scatter more strongly, while longer reddish wavelengths continue traveling through the sky. Landscapes, clouds, and buildings may suddenly appear warm orange or red, even though the physical surfaces themselves have not changed. Cone cells also contribute strongly to detailed central vision. The center region of the retina contains especially dense populations of cones, allowing people to focus sharply on written text, faces, and fine details under bright conditions. Color perception and visual sharpness therefore work closely together within the visual system. One especially remarkable thing about cones is how rapidly they respond to changing environments. Walking from a dim room into bright sunlight quickly increases cone activity as stronger illumination reaches the retina. Under these brighter conditions, the visual world becomes richer in detail and color because cone cells contribute more strongly to perception. The visual system constantly compares signals arriving from different cone types in order to interpret color relationships. Rather than simply detecting isolated colors one at a time, the brain evaluates patterns of cone activity across the retina. This allows humans to distinguish subtle variations between thousands of different color shades and tones. Scientists studying vision often describe color perception as an active interpretation process rather than passive detection alone. The retina gathers information from incoming light, but the brain ultimately organizes and interprets these signals into the experience of color. Perception depends upon cooperation between the eye and nervous system working together continuously. Lighting conditions strongly influence how colors appear. Bright daylight allows rich color perception because cone cells receive strong illumination across many wavelengths. In dim environments, however, rod cells become more dominant, while cone activity decreases. Colors therefore appear softer, weaker, or less distinct at night, because the visual system shifts toward brightness and motion detection instead. One fascinating aspect of color perception is that humans cannot directly see all wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. The visible spectrum represents only a small portion of the much broader range of energy moving through the environment. The retina responds specifically to wavelengths useful for human vision, while many additional forms of radiation remain invisible to the eye. The ability to perceive color also provides important information about the environment. Ripeness in fruit, changes in weather, natural landscapes, firelight, shadows, and biological signals from other humans may all involve color differences, helping the brain interpret surroundings quickly and efficiently. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, cone cells inside your retinas continue responding to different wavelengths of reflected light around you. Tiny specialized cells remain active, while the visual system quietly separates patterns of color from the environment. Without effort or awareness, your eyes and brain continue transforming invisible wavelengths into the rich experience of color that shapes the visible world around you every waking moment. Deep inside the retina, something extraordinary happens every second your eyes remain open. Incoming light does not simply bounce harmlessly across the surface of retinal cells. Instead, the light triggers real chemical reactions inside specialized molecules hidden within rods and cones. These reactions begin the process that eventually allows the brain to experience sight. Long before the brain recognizes shapes, movement, or color, light must first be transformed into biological activity inside the retina itself. Scientists refer to this process as phototransduction. The word may sound complex, yet the basic idea is remarkably elegant. Photo refers to light, while transduction means conversion from one form into another. Phototransduction is therefore the process by which light energy becomes electrical activity inside the nervous system. One especially fascinating thing about vision is that the eye does not actually send light directly into the brain. Instead, retinal cells convert incoming light into electrical signals that the nervous system can carry and process. The visual system therefore functions almost like a translator, transforming physical energy from the outside world into biological information the brain can understand. Inside rod and cone cells are light-sensitive molecules, specially designed to react when struck by incoming light. These molecules contain pigments capable of changing shape when they absorb certain wavelengths. The moment light reaches them, tiny structural changes begin unfolding inside the cell itself. Humans often imagine chemical reactions as dramatic bubbling or visible transformations, yet the chemistry inside retinal cells is incredibly small and precise. Molecules shift shape, proteins activate one another, electrical balance changes across the cell membrane. All of this activity happens silently and continuously within microscopic structures deep inside the retina. In rod cells, one important light-sensitive pigment is called rhodopsin. Rhodopsin plays a major role in low-light vision because it responds very efficiently to dim illumination. When light reaches rhodopsin molecules, the pigment changes structure and begins a chain of biological events inside the rod cell. Cone cells contain different pigments specialized for color detection. Each cone type responds more strongly to certain wavelengths associated with different regions of visible light. Incoming light triggers chemical changes within these pigments as well, allowing the retina to begin separating color information from the environment around you. The remarkable thing about phototransduction is how quickly it happens. Light reaches the retina, and chemical reactions begin almost immediately. Tiny molecular changes trigger shifts in electrical activity across the retinal cells, preparing information for deeper stages of visual processing. Electrical signals inside the nervous system depend upon controlled movement of charged particles across cell membranes. Retinal cells maintain delicate electrical balances even while resting quietly in darkness. When incoming light triggers chemical changes, that electrical balance shifts, altering the activity level of the cell itself. One fascinating aspect of this process is that retinal cells respond differently in darkness and light. In complete darkness, certain channels within the cell remain more active. When light arrives, chemical reactions begin changing the flow of charged particles, altering the electrical state of the cell. The retina therefore detects changes in light through carefully controlled biological chemistry. Researchers often describe the retina as a living layer of biochemical detection tissue because so much of vision depends upon molecular reactions happening continuously inside specialized cells. Every image, face, landscape, shadow, or moving object begins as patterns of chemical and electrical activity unfolding across the retina. The process never truly stops while your eyes remain open. Every second, incoming light continues triggering molecular responses throughout rods and cones, depending upon brightness, color, and surrounding conditions. The retina remains active constantly, quietly converting physical light into signals the nervous system can carry toward the brain. One especially remarkable thing about phototransduction is how efficiently it operates. The visual system handles enormous amounts of incoming information continuously without overwhelming awareness. Millions of retinal cells respond to changing light patterns simultaneously, while chemical reactions unfold with astonishing speed and precision. The chemistry inside retinal cells also depends heavily upon structure and organization. Light-sensitive molecules must remain positioned correctly within the cells in order to function properly. Tiny disruptions to this organization can strongly affect vision because the process depends upon extraordinarily precise biological coordination. Humans rely on this hidden chemistry every waking moment of life. Reading words, recognizing familiar faces, watching clouds move across the sky, or noticing candlelight in a quiet room all depend upon phototransduction occurring successfully inside retinal cells. Without these chemical reactions, light entering the eye would never become useful visual information. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, incoming light continues triggering tiny chemical reactions deep inside your retinas. Molecules shift shape, while electrical balances change within rods and cones, responding to the environment around you. Without effort or awareness, your visual system continues transforming physical light into biological activity every second through the quiet process of phototransduction itself. Once light has been transformed into electrical activity inside rods and cones, the visual process continues deeper within the retina itself. At this stage, the eye is no longer simply detecting incoming light. The retina begins organizing, refining, and preparing visual information before signals ever reach the brain. Even though most people think of the retina as a simple detection surface, it actually performs a remarkable amount of early visual processing on its own. Electrical signals generated inside rods and cones move through several layers of retinal cells arranged with extraordinary precision. These layers function almost like a carefully organized biological network where information passes from one group of cells to another. Signals change, combine, strengthen, or weaken depending on the patterns of incoming light arriving across the retina. Humans often imagine the eye working like a camera, sending complete pictures directly to the brain. Yet the retina behaves far more actively than a passive recording device. Long before the brain becomes consciously aware of anything, retinal cells are already sorting and refining visual information in complex ways. One remarkable aspect of retinal processing is how many different cell types participate in the system. Rods and cones detect incoming light, but additional retinal cells help organize and shape the resulting electrical signals. Some cells strengthen contrast between bright and dark regions. Others contribute to edge detection, movement sensitivity, or signal coordination across neighboring regions of the retina. The retina therefore acts almost like an early processing center within the visual system. Instead of forwarding raw information unchanged, it begins preparing signals into more useful patterns before sending them deeper into the nervous system. This organization helps the brain interpret visual information more efficiently later on. As signals move through retinal layers, patterns begin to emerge from the incoming light. Bright regions activate cells differently from darker areas. Changes in movement create shifting activity across neighboring retinal cells. Contrasting edges produce stronger signal differences, helping shapes stand out from surrounding backgrounds. One especially fascinating thing about this process is how rapidly it unfolds. Millions of retinal cells respond simultaneously every second, while electrical activity flows continuously through interconnected layers. The retina processes enormous amounts of information almost instantly, allowing visual perception to feel smooth and immediate, even though many hidden stages are occurring in the background. Scientists studying the retina often describe it as part of the brain itself because of how actively it processes information. The retina does far more than simple light detection. It contributes directly to early perception by organizing signals before they ever leave the eye. The arrangement of retinal layers also supports efficient communication between cells. Signals move vertically through detection pathways, while additional cells spread information sideways across neighboring regions. This allows the retina to compare nearby patterns of light and improve sensitivity to contrast, movement, and spatial organization. One remarkable feature of retinal processing is its ability to emphasize important changes within the visual environment. Sudden movement, sharp edges, or strong contrast differences often produce stronger patterns of retinal activity, because these changes may carry important information about the surrounding world. The retina must also process information continuously under changing lighting conditions. Bright daylight, shadows, candlelight, moonlight, and indoor lighting all create different patterns of retinal activity. The visual system constantly adjusts itself while maintaining organized signal flow toward the brain. Even though the retina performs substantial processing, conscious awareness still has not fully formed at this stage. The signals moving through retinal layers remain biological patterns of electrical activity rather than recognizable thoughts or images. Yet these early stages are essential because they prepare information for deeper interpretation later within the brain. One fascinating truth about vision is that the world you experience as stable and complete actually begins as constantly shifting electrical patterns inside living tissue. The retina quietly organizes these patterns every second, transforming changing waves of light into structured information suitable for nervous system communication. The efficiency of retinal processing becomes especially remarkable when considering how much information enters the eyes continuously. Every visible object, movement, shadow, texture, and color contributes to the incoming visual stream. The retina manages this complexity automatically while maintaining stable perception of the environment around you. Scientists continue studying retinal networks because many aspects of this processing remain extraordinarily sophisticated even by modern scientific standards. The retina represents one of the most advanced biological detection and processing systems found anywhere in nature. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, electrical signals continue moving through layers of retinal cells deep inside your eyes. Patterns of light are being organized and refined continuously, while tiny networks of cells communicate with remarkable speed and precision. Without effort or awareness, your retinas continue preparing visual information every second before those signals begin their journey toward the brain itself. As electrical signals continue moving through the retina, the visual system begins organizing incoming information into increasingly meaningful patterns. At this stage, the retina is doing far more than simply passing signals forward. Different groups of retinal cells compare, refine, and strengthen certain types of information while reducing less important background activity. Long before the brain consciously recognizes an image, the retina has already begun shaping the foundation of perception itself. Patterns start forming as neighboring retinal cells communicate with one another. Bright areas create different electrical responses than darker regions. Sharp boundaries between objects generate stronger contrasts across nearby cells. Movement causes changing waves of activity across the retinal surface. The retina quietly transforms incoming light into organized biological patterns capable of carrying information about the environment. Humans often assume vision works like a direct recording of reality, almost as though the eyes simply photograph the outside world exactly as it appears. Yet the visual system is constantly interpreting and refining information at every stage. The retina itself already contributes to this interpretation process before signals even reach the brain. One fascinating aspect of retinal processing is how strongly the system responds to contrast. Edges where brightness changes suddenly often produce especially strong patterns of activity. This helps the visual system separate objects from backgrounds and recognize shapes more efficiently. A dark tree against a bright sky or written letters against white paper create strong contrast signals that stand out clearly within retinal processing networks. Certain retinal cells specialize in detecting changes across neighboring regions rather than responding only to isolated points of light. These comparisons help sharpen visual information and improve sensitivity to patterns within the environment. The retina therefore emphasizes differences and structure rather than simply measuring brightness alone. Movement also becomes important during this stage of processing. As objects shift across the visual field, changing patterns of activity move across the retina as well. Specialized retinal pathways respond strongly to motion, helping the visual system remain sensitive to movement even before conscious awareness fully forms. The retina must manage extraordinary amounts of incoming information continuously. Every visible object contributes patterns of brightness, color, shape, texture, and movement all at once. Retinal networks organize this complexity with remarkable efficiency, allowing visual experience to feel stable and immediate despite the enormous biological activity unfolding underneath. Researchers often describe the retina as an active neural network because so many layers of communication occur inside it. Signals move between interconnected cells where information is modified, coordinated, and refined before leaving the eye. The retina is therefore not merely a light detector, but an early visual processor deeply involved in shaping perception. One especially remarkable thing about this system is its speed. Retinal processing happens almost instantly, while incoming light patterns change continuously from moment to moment. Reading a sentence, tracking moving objects, recognizing familiar faces, or noticing shifting shadows all depend upon rapid signal refinement happening automatically inside the retina. The organization of retinal signals also helps reduce unnecessary information. The visual system cannot treat every incoming detail with equal importance at all times. Retinal networks therefore help emphasize meaningful contrasts, movement, and structural patterns while filtering background activity that may be less relevant for perception. Even simple visual scenes involve enormous complexity. A quiet room may contain hundreds of overlapping light reflections, textures, edges, shadows, and movements. Yet the retina organizes these patterns efficiently enough that conscious awareness experiences the environment as coherent and understandable rather than chaotic. One fascinating truth about vision is that perception begins taking shape long before conscious thought becomes aware of what is being seen. By the time signals eventually reach deeper brain regions, the retina has already contributed substantial organization and refinement to the information arriving from the outside world. The retina also helps maintain visual stability despite constant small movements of the eyes themselves. Human eyes shift position frequently, even during focused attention. Retinal processing works together with deeper visual systems to maintain the experience of a stable environment despite these continuous movements. Scientists studying retinal biology continue discovering increasingly sophisticated processing pathways inside the eye. Many retinal cells respond selectively to specific visual patterns, brightness changes, or motion directions. The complexity of these networks reveals how much visual interpretation begins directly within the retina itself. The process never pauses while your eyes remain open. Every second, electrical signals continue flowing through retinal layers, while networks of cells compare, refine, and organize incoming information. The visual system remains active constantly, quietly preparing patterns suitable for deeper interpretation inside the brain. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, electrical activity continues moving through the retinas inside your eyes. Tiny networks of cells are refining patterns of brightness, movement, and contrast, while visual information becomes increasingly organized. Without effort or awareness, your retinas continue shaping the early foundations of perception every second before those signals travel onward toward the brain itself. Once retinal processing has organized and refined incoming visual information, the signals must leave the eye and begin traveling toward the brain. This journey happens through an extraordinary structure known as the optic nerve. The optic nerve functions as the primary communication pathway linking the retina to deeper regions of the nervous system where visual interpretation continues. At the back of each eye, thousands upon thousands of retinal cell fibers gather together into a dense bundle that forms the optic nerve. These fibers carry electrical signals generated and refined within the retina, allowing information about light, movement, contrast, shape, and color to travel deeper into the brain. Humans often imagine nerves as simple wires carrying information from one location to another, yet the optic nerve is actually a highly organized biological pathway containing enormous numbers of individual nerve fibers working simultaneously. Every second, massive amounts of visual information move along this pathway with remarkable speed and coordination. The signals traveling through the optic nerve are electrical impulses generated through carefully controlled activity within retinal cells. Tiny changes in electrical balance move along nerve fibers almost instantly, allowing visual information to travel rapidly from the eye toward the brain. Without this fast communication system, vision would feel delayed, unstable, or disconnected from the outside world. One remarkable aspect of the optic nerve is the sheer volume of information it carries continuously. Every visible detail from the environment contributes to ongoing patterns of electrical activity, moving toward deeper visual centers inside the brain. Faces, movement, shadows, written words, colors, and changing light conditions all generate signals traveling through this narrow biological pathway. The optic nerve must operate with extraordinary reliability because visual perception depends heavily upon precise timing. Signals arriving too slowly or out of sequence could interfere with stable perception of movement and spatial relationships. The nervous system therefore maintains highly coordinated communication between the retina and brain at all times. Researchers often describe nerve impulses as traveling through waves of controlled electrical activity along individual fibers. These impulses are not random bursts of electricity. Instead, they follow highly organized biological mechanisms, allowing information to move efficiently across long distances within the nervous system. The optic nerve also demonstrates how deeply connected the eye is to the brain itself. Although the eyes appear externally separate from the brain, the visual system functions as one integrated network. Retinal cells generate signals, the optic nerve transports them, and deeper brain regions continue processing and interpretation almost instantly. One especially fascinating thing about the optic nerve is that each eye sends enormous amounts of information simultaneously, while the brain combines signals from both eyes together into a unified visual experience. Slight differences between the images received by each eye help contribute to depth perception and awareness of three-dimensional space. The region where the optic nerve exits the retina contains no rods or cones because space is occupied by bundled nerve fibers leaving the eye. This area is often called the blind spot. Under ordinary conditions, people rarely notice it because the brain automatically fills in missing information using surrounding visual patterns and input from both eyes together. The speed of visual signal transmission is essential for interacting smoothly with the environment. Catching a moving object, walking through crowded spaces, reading text, or noticing sudden movement all depend upon rapid communication between the eyes and brain. The optic nerve helps make this continuous flow of information possible. One remarkable truth about vision is that the brain never directly receives light itself. Instead, it receives streams of electrical activity generated and refined by retinal tissue. Everything you consciously experience visually begins as organized nerve signals, traveling through pathways such as the optic nerve. Scientists studying the visual system often emphasize how much coordination is required for stable perception. The retina must detect and organize information accurately. Signals must travel rapidly through the optic nerve. Brain regions must continue interpreting the incoming patterns almost immediately. Vision depends upon precise timing across every stage of the system. The pacing of the visual system remains calm and continuous, even while enormous amounts of biological activity unfold quietly beneath awareness. The optic nerve remains active continuously every moment the eyes are open. Incoming visual information changes constantly as lighting conditions shift, objects move, and attention changes across the environment. Yet signals continue flowing smoothly through the optic nerve without interruption, supporting stable awareness of the surrounding world. Even though this process unfolds continuously throughout life, most people remain completely unaware of the hidden biological communication happening inside the visual system. The eyes gather information silently, while electrical activity travels rapidly toward the brain through microscopic nerve fibers, operating with astonishing precision. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, electrical signals continue traveling through the optic nerves behind your eyes. Patterns of light gathered from the environment are moving rapidly toward deeper regions of the brain, while the visual system quietly maintains awareness of the world around you. Without effort or awareness, billions of tiny electrical events continue carrying visual information through the nervous system every second of waking life. After electrical signals travel through the optic nerves, they arrive within deeper regions of the brain where visual processing continues on an even larger scale. At this stage, the nervous system begins transforming organized retinal signals into the conscious experience of sight itself. The brain receives patterns of electrical activity from both eyes and gradually interprets them into shape, movement, color, depth, and awareness. One of the most fascinating truths about vision is that the brain never directly sees the outside world. It never receives sunlight, color, or images in the ordinary sense people imagine. Instead, the brain receives streams of electrical information generated by the retina and carried through the optic nerves. From these patterns alone, the nervous system constructs the visual experience you perceive every waking moment. Humans often think of the brain as viewing tiny pictures sent from the eyes, almost like screens displaying images internally. Yet the process is far more dynamic and complex. The brain constantly interprets changing electrical patterns arriving from the visual system while combining them with memory, spatial awareness, motion detection, and previous experience. Signals arriving from the eyes first pass through important relay regions deep inside the brain before reaching areas heavily involved in visual interpretation. These relay systems help organize incoming information and direct signals towards specialized visual regions responsible for different aspects of perception. Certain brain areas respond strongly to movement. Others contribute more heavily to shape recognition, color interpretation, depth perception, or facial identification. Vision therefore depends upon many interconnected regions working together simultaneously rather than one single location operating alone. One especially remarkable thing about the visual brain is how efficiently it combines signals from both eyes into a unified perception of the world. Each eye views the environment from a slightly different angle. The brain compares these differences carefully, helping create the experience of depth and three-dimensional space. This coordination allows humans to judge distance, navigate environments, and recognize spatial relationships with remarkable precision. Catching a moving object, walking through a doorway, or reaching toward a nearby surface all depend upon the brain successfully interpreting visual information arriving from both eyes together. The process of interpretation happens extremely quickly. By the time you consciously notice an object or movement, enormous amounts of biological processing have already occurred throughout the retina, optic nerves, and brain itself. Vision feels immediate because the nervous system handles these calculations with astonishing speed. Researchers often describe perception as an active construction process because the brain is constantly organizing incoming information into stable awareness of the surrounding world. The nervous system fills gaps, interprets patterns, stabilizes motion, and combines fragmented signals into coherent visual experience. One fascinating example of this construction process involves the blind spot created where the optic nerve leaves the retina. Even though this region contains no light-detecting cells, most people never notice a missing area in their vision because the brain automatically fills in surrounding information, creating a seamless perception of the environment. The visual brain also helps maintain stability despite constant eye movements. Human eyes move frequently throughout the day, even during focused attention. Without specialized processing, the visual world would appear unstable or constantly shifting. Instead, the brain quietly stabilizes perception while integrating changing streams of information from the eyes. Memory and recognition strongly influence visual interpretation as well. The brain does not simply detect shapes and colors in isolation. It compares incoming signals with stored experience, helping identify familiar faces, recognize objects, interpret language, and understand environmental context almost instantly. One especially remarkable thing about awareness itself is that it emerges from these countless coordinated biological events unfolding continuously throughout the nervous system. Light enters the eye, retinal cells generate electrical activity, signals travel through nerves, and brain regions interpret patterns until visual perception finally becomes conscious experience. Scientists continue studying how the brain constructs visual awareness because many aspects of perception remain extraordinarily complex. The transition from electrical signals to conscious sight is one of the most fascinating processes in all of biology and neuroscience. The visual system must also remain flexible because environments constantly change. Lighting shifts throughout the day. Objects move unpredictably. Shadows alter appearance. Yet the brain continuously updates and stabilizes perception while adapting to changing visual conditions almost instantly. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, streams of electrical signals continue arriving from your eyes into visual regions deep inside the brain. Patterns of brightness, shape, movement, and color are being interpreted continuously, while awareness of the surrounding environment quietly forms around you. Without effort or awareness, your brain continues constructing the experience of sight every second through the remarkable coordination of the visual nervous system itself. Vision depends upon extraordinary coordination between many different systems working together at the same time. No single structure inside the eye or brain creates sight on its own. Instead, vision emerges through continuous cooperation between light, retinal cells, nerves, brain regions, muscles, chemistry, and electrical signaling. Every layer contributes quietly to the final experience of perception. The pacing of the visual system remains calm and continuous, even while enormous amounts of biological activity unfold quietly beneath awareness. The process begins with light moving through the environment before entering the eye. The pupil regulates incoming brightness, while the lens carefully focuses light toward the retina. Specialized retinal cells detect the incoming patterns and begin transforming physical light into electrical activity. Signals travel through retinal networks, move along the optic nerve, and eventually reach deeper regions of the brain, where interpretation continues. Each stage depends upon the others, operating with remarkable timing and precision. Humans often experience sight as effortless because the coordination behind it remains invisible to conscious awareness. You look across a room and immediately recognize objects, movement, distance, and color without noticing the countless biological systems quietly cooperating underneath. Yet even the simplest visual experience depends upon extraordinary organization unfolding continuously inside the body. One especially fascinating thing about the visual system is how many different forms of activity occur simultaneously. Light enters the eye while muscles adjust the pupil and lens. Retinal chemistry reacts to incoming wavelengths. Electrical signals move through nerve pathways. Brain regions compare patterns and organize perception. Multiple systems remain active together. Every second vision continues. The retina itself already contains many interconnected layers cooperating with one another. Rods and cones detect different lighting conditions. Additional retinal cells refine contrast, organize movement information, and shape signal patterns before information even leaves the eye. By the time signals reach the brain, substantial coordination has already taken place. The optic nerves then carry organized electrical activity toward deeper visual centers inside the brain. Signals from both eyes must remain synchronized carefully so perception stays stable and unified. Even small disruptions in coordination can affect depth perception, clarity, or visual stability, because timing plays such an important role throughout the system. One remarkable aspect of vision is how accurately the nervous system combines information from both eyes into one seamless visual experience. Each eye receives slightly different incoming patterns because they occupy different positions on the face. The brain compares these differences continuously, helping create awareness of depth and spatial position within the environment. Researchers often describe perception as an active construction process because the brain does not simply display information exactly as it arrives. Instead, the nervous system organizes, compares, stabilizes, and interprets signals continuously. The experience of sight emerges gradually from the coordinated activity of many systems working together simultaneously. Chemistry also remains deeply involved throughout vision. Light-sensitive molecules inside rods and cones react to incoming light through phototransduction. Electrical balances shift across cell membranes while signals move between neurons through chemical communication. The visual system depends upon both chemistry and electricity working together continuously. One fascinating truth about vision is that the visual world feels smooth and stable, even though the underlying biological activity is incredibly dynamic. Signals move constantly, cells respond continuously, lighting conditions change from moment to moment, yet perception remains remarkably coherent because the nervous system coordinates these changes with extraordinary efficiency. Timing matters greatly because visual signals must remain organized across many stages of processing. Delays or mismatched timing could interfere with motion detection, depth perception, or coordination between the eyes. The visual system therefore operates with remarkable synchronization from retinal detection all the way through deeper brain interpretation. The muscles controlling eye movement also contribute to visual coordination. Human eyes move constantly throughout the day, shifting attention rapidly between different regions of the environment. These movements must remain carefully coordinated, so both eyes continue focusing together accurately. One especially remarkable thing about the visual system is how naturally it adapts to changing conditions. Bright sunlight, dim evening light, shadows, fog, movement, and changing environments all require constant adjustments throughout the system. Yet these changes happen automatically without requiring conscious effort. Scientists studying neuroscience often view vision as one of the clearest examples of large-scale biological cooperation within the human body. Countless cells and systems communicate continuously in order to transform reflected light into stable awareness of the surrounding world. Even while resting quietly, the visual system never fully stops working. Incoming light continues reaching the retina. Electrical signals continue moving through nerves. Brain regions continue organizing visual information, while muscles maintain eye position and focus. Vision depends upon ongoing coordination every waking second of life. The pacing of the visual system remains calm and continuous, even while enormous amounts of biological activity unfold quietly beneath awareness. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, multiple systems inside your body continue cooperating to support sight. Light enters the eyes while retinal cells generate signals, and brain regions organize perception into awareness of the world around you. Without effort or awareness, countless biological processes continue working together with remarkable coordination, quietly maintaining the experience of vision every second. One of the most remarkable features of the visual system is how quickly it operates. The world around you changes constantly from moment to moment. Shadows shift across rooms. People move through space. Leaves sway in the wind. Reflections ripple across water. Yet despite this continuous motion, vision usually feels smooth, stable, and immediate. This stability depends heavily upon timing throughout the visual system. Signals generated inside the retina travel rapidly through nerves and brain pathways, while countless biological processes remain carefully synchronized. If visual timing were disrupted significantly, perception could become unstable or confusing. Motion might appear delayed, depth relationships could feel distorted, and coordination with the surrounding environment would become far more difficult. Humans often think of seeing as a passive experience, yet the nervous system is constantly updating visual information at extraordinary speed. Every second, incoming light patterns shift continuously, while retinal cells, nerves, and brain regions work together to maintain stable awareness of the environment. The eyes themselves move frequently throughout the day, even when people believe they are staring steadily at one object. Tiny eye movements happen naturally as attention shifts between details in the environment. Larger movements allow the eyes to rapidly redirect focus from one location to another. Despite this constant motion, the visual world does not usually appear shaky or unstable because the brain continuously stabilizes perception in the background. Researchers often describe vision as dynamic because the visual system never truly captures one frozen image. Instead, perception is constantly refreshed and updated through ongoing streams of incoming information. The brain compares changing signals continuously, helping maintain smooth awareness of movement and spatial position. Timing becomes especially important when detecting motion. As objects move across the visual field, changing patterns of activity travel across the retina and through visual pathways inside the brain. Specialized systems respond strongly to these changes, allowing humans to detect movement with remarkable sensitivity. One especially fascinating thing about motion perception is how quickly the brain can respond to sudden visual changes. A fast-moving object, shifting shadow, or unexpected movement may capture attention almost instantly because visual pathways are designed to process change rapidly and efficiently. The visual system must also coordinate timing between both eyes carefully. Signals arriving from the left and right eyes need to remain synchronized closely in order to preserve stable depth perception and spatial awareness. Even small timing differences can affect how the brain combines information into a unified visual experience. Perception itself is constantly changing as new visual information arrives. Brightness levels shift, attention moves across different objects, eye position changes slightly from moment to moment, yet the brain integrates these changing signals smoothly enough that awareness feels continuous and stable rather than fragmented. One remarkable aspect of the nervous system is how efficiently it filters visual information. The environment contains enormous amounts of changing detail every second, yet the brain organizes this complexity into manageable perception. Movement, contrast, faces, and important environmental changes often receive stronger attention, while less important background information remains quieter within awareness. The visual system also adapts rapidly to changing lighting conditions. Moving from bright sunlight into a dim room triggers immediate adjustments throughout the eyes and retina. The pupils change size, retinal sensitivity shifts, and deeper visual pathways adapt gradually to maintain useful perception under new conditions. Scientists studying visual timing continue discovering how deeply coordinated these processes are throughout the nervous system. Eye movements, retinal processing, nerve transmission, and brain interpretation all depend upon careful synchronization occurring continuously in the background. One fascinating truth about sight is that awareness always lags slightly behind the outside world itself, because biological processing takes time. Yet the delay is so small and the nervous system so efficient that perception feels immediate during ordinary experience. The brain constantly updates awareness fast enough to create smooth interaction with the surrounding environment. Biology supports this rapid coordination through immense networks of communicating cells operating simultaneously. Electrical activity moves along nerve pathways, while chemical signals help neurons communicate across tiny junctions within the nervous system. Every stage contributes to the timing required for stable perception. The process never fully stops while the eyes remain open. Incoming light continues changing every second, while the nervous system constantly refreshes visual awareness of the surrounding environment. Perception remains dynamic because the world itself is always changing. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, visual signals continue moving rapidly through your nervous system, while the brain quietly updates awareness of the world around you. Tiny eye movements, retinal activity, nerve signaling, and brain coordination continue unfolding together with extraordinary timing and precision. Without effort or awareness, your visual system continues refreshing perception every second, allowing sight to remain smooth, stable, and continuous throughout waking life. At its core, vision is the transformation of physical energy into biological awareness. Light begins as energy moving through space, traveling outward from the sun, lamps, screens, firelight, or reflected surfaces throughout the environment. Yet by the time that energy becomes part of conscious experience, it has passed through an extraordinary chain of biological events involving chemistry, electricity, nerves, and brain interpretation working together continuously. One of the most fascinating truths about sight is that the brain never directly experiences light itself. What the nervous system receives are electrical patterns generated through retinal activity deep inside the eye. The visual system therefore functions almost like a living translator, converting invisible physical energy into signals the brain can organize into meaningful perception. Humans often think of light as something soft or gentle because sunlight and color feel visually natural. Yet from a scientific perspective, light is a form of electromagnetic energy traveling through the environment at extraordinary speed. Every visible scene around you depends upon this energy reaching the eyes successfully before any visual experience can occur. The transformation begins the moment incoming light reaches rods and cones inside the retina. Specialized pigments absorb certain wavelengths, while molecular reactions alter electrical balance within the cells. Physical light energy is gradually converted into biological activity through phototransduction, allowing the nervous system to begin carrying information deeper into the brain. Electrical signaling then becomes the language of the visual system. Retinal cells communicate through organized patterns of electrical activity, while nerve fibers transmit signals rapidly toward visual regions inside the brain. Shape, brightness, movement, and color all become encoded within these changing electrical patterns moving through the nervous system every second. One remarkable aspect of this process is how efficiently the brain extracts meaning from electrical signals alone. The nervous system receives no direct sunlight, no actual colors, and no miniature images from the outside world. Instead, it interprets patterns of activity generated inside the visual system and gradually builds the experience of perception from those signals. Meaning itself begins emerging through interpretation, a collection of shifting electrical patterns becomes the recognition of a familiar face, a nearby object, written words, moonlight through a window, or shadows moving quietly across a room. The brain continuously transforms biological information into awareness of the surrounding environment. Researchers often describe the nervous system as highly specialized for pattern recognition because so much of perception depends upon identifying relationships within incoming signals. The visual brain compares contrast, movement, color, depth, and structure continuously while organizing these patterns into stable awareness. One especially fascinating thing about vision is how naturally this transformation feels, despite its extraordinary complexity. People rarely stop to consider that every visual experience depends upon physical energy becoming chemistry, chemistry becoming electricity, and electrical activity becoming conscious perception inside the brain. The retina and brain cooperate closely throughout this process. The retina detects and organizes information, while deeper brain regions continue interpreting the resulting signals. Neither structure alone creates sight independently. Vision emerges gradually through cooperation between many interconnected systems working together simultaneously. Electrical signals moving through visual pathways must remain carefully coordinated because perception depends heavily upon timing and organization. Signals arriving too slowly or out of sequence could disrupt awareness of movement, depth, or spatial stability. The nervous system therefore maintains remarkably synchronized communication throughout the visual system. One remarkable feature of visual perception is that the brain constantly updates awareness while incoming information changes continuously. Every shift in lighting, movement, or attention alters patterns of activity moving through retinal and brain pathways. Yet perception remains smooth because the nervous system integrates these changes continuously in the background. The transformation from light into awareness also reflects broader principles found throughout biology. The body constantly converts one form of information or energy into another. Sound waves become nerve activity inside the ears. Chemical molecules become taste and smell. Pressure becomes touch. Vision is one part of a much larger sensory system, translating the outside world into biological experience. Scientists studying neuroscience continue exploring how electrical activity eventually becomes conscious awareness, because the transition remains one of the most fascinating questions in biology. The visual system demonstrates how physical processes inside living tissue can produce the rich experience of perception people rely upon every day. Even simple moments depend upon this extraordinary transformation process. Watching rain move across glass, recognizing a loved one, reading words on a page, or noticing shifting evening shadows all begin with reflected light entering the eyes and becoming biological signals inside the nervous system. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, reflected light continues entering your eyes, while physical energy is transformed into electrical activity deep inside the retina. Signals continue moving through visual pathways, while the brain quietly organizes those patterns into awareness of the surrounding world. Without effort or awareness, your nervous system continues converting light into perception every second through one of the most remarkable biological processes found anywhere in nature. The retina and the brain function as deeply connected partners throughout the process of vision. Neither structure works alone. The retina gathers and organizes incoming light, while the brain continues interpreting those signals into meaningful perception. Together, they create the experience of sight through constant communication, unfolding every waking moment. One especially remarkable thing about this partnership is how much information the retina prepares before signals even leave the eye. Patterns of brightness, movement, contrast, and color are already being refined through retinal networks before electrical activity enters the optic nerve. By the time signals reach deeper visual centers inside the brain, the information has already passed through several layers of biological organization. The brain then continues building meaning from these incoming patterns. Shapes become recognizable objects. Movement gains direction and speed. Familiar faces become identifiable almost instantly. The nervous system compares incoming signals with memory and previous experience, helping transform raw visual information into useful awareness of the surrounding environment. Humans often underestimate how active the brain remains during ordinary perception. Sight feels automatic because the nervous system performs enormous amounts of interpretation silently in the background. Yet every visual experience depends upon countless cells communicating continuously through electrical and chemical signaling across large regions of the brain. Recognition is one of the most fascinating parts of this process. The brain does not simply detect isolated pieces of visual information. Instead, it organizes relationships between shapes, edges, colors, movement, and spatial patterns in order to recognize meaningful structures within the environment. A familiar face, for example, may be recognized almost immediately, even under changing lighting conditions or from different angles. This happens because the visual brain continuously searches for recognizable patterns and compares them with stored memory. The process unfolds so quickly that recognition feels effortless despite the extraordinary complexity involved. The visual system also remains highly flexible. Environments change constantly throughout the day. Brightness shifts, objects move, shadows alter shape and contrast. Yet the retina and brain cooperate continuously to maintain stable awareness despite these changing conditions. One especially fascinating thing about perception is that the brain often predicts and stabilizes incoming information rather than simply reacting passively to every signal. Previous experience, memory, and expectation help shape interpretation of the visual world. The nervous system constantly works to maintain coherent awareness, even when incoming information is incomplete or changing rapidly. Scientists studying visual neuroscience often describe the brain as a prediction and interpretation system because perception depends so heavily upon organization of patterns rather than isolated signals alone. The retina provides structured information, while the brain transforms that information into meaningful understanding of the surrounding environment. The visual system must also remain active continuously because the outside world never completely stops changing. Eye movements shift attention rapidly between different regions of space. Lighting conditions evolve throughout the day. Movement constantly alters incoming retinal patterns. Yet the nervous system integrates these changes smoothly enough that awareness feels stable and uninterrupted. One remarkable aspect of visual coordination is how efficiently the retina and brain communicate together. Signals move rapidly along nerve pathways, while specialized brain regions process different features of visual information simultaneously. Some areas contribute strongly to movement detection. Others specialize in color, depth, shape, or recognition. Together, these systems create unified visual perception. The cooperation between eye and brain also supports learning and adaptation. The visual system becomes increasingly skilled at interpreting patterns through repeated experience over time. Reading, recognizing environments, judging distance, and navigating movement all improve through continuous interaction between perception and experience. Scientists continue discovering new details about how visual pathways cooperate because the system remains extraordinarily sophisticated even by modern scientific standards. Vision depends upon billions of communicating cells operating together with remarkable timing and precision every second of waking life. The pacing of the visual system remains calm and continuous, even while enormous amounts of biological activity unfold quietly beneath awareness. One fascinating truth about awareness is that the visual world feels complete and immediate, despite being built gradually through many hidden stages of biological activity. Light enters the eye, retinal cells organize information, nerves transmit signals, and brain regions interpret patterns until sight finally becomes conscious experience. The process never pauses while your eyes remain open. Incoming light continues reaching the retina, while electrical activity flows through visual pathways deep inside the nervous system. Recognition, interpretation, stabilization, and awareness continue unfolding together, continuously, in the background. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, your retinas and brain continue cooperating to maintain perception of the world around you. Signals move silently through visual pathways, while the nervous system organizes patterns into meaningful awareness. Without effort or awareness, billions of tiny biological events continue working together every second to create the remarkable experience of sight itself. The visual world around you never remains perfectly still. Light shifts constantly throughout the day as the position of the sun changes across the sky. Clouds soften brightness for a few moments before drifting away again. Shadows stretch slowly across rooms and landscapes. Lamps switch on at night, while distant headlights move quietly through darkness. Yet despite these endless changes, your visual system adapts continuously in order to maintain stable perception of the environment. One especially remarkable thing about the eyes is how flexible they remain under changing conditions. Bright sunlight, dim evening light, candlelight, fog, shadows, moonlight, and artificial lighting all create very different visual environments. The nervous system constantly adjusts itself in response, quietly balancing sensitivity, focus, and interpretation without requiring conscious effort. The pupils play an important role in this adaptation process by changing size according to surrounding brightness. In strong light, the pupils narrow to reduce incoming illumination. In darkness, they widen to gather additional light. Yet pupil adjustment represents only one part of a much larger system, operating continuously throughout the eyes and brain. The retina also changes its sensitivity depending on lighting conditions. In bright environments, cone cells contribute strongly to detailed color vision. In dim conditions, rod cells become increasingly important because of their greater sensitivity to low levels of light. The visual system therefore shifts between different modes of operation depending upon available illumination. Humans often notice this adaptation when entering a dark room after spending time outside in bright sunlight. At first, vision may feel limited and unclear. Gradually, however, sensitivity improves as the retina and nervous system adapt to lower light conditions. Small details begin emerging slowly from darkness as rod activity increases and the visual system recalibrates itself. The opposite happens when stepping suddenly into bright sunlight from a dark environment. The visual system responds quickly by reducing sensitivity and narrowing the pupils. Brightness initially feels overwhelming because retinal systems require time to adjust to the dramatic increase in incoming light. One fascinating aspect of visual adaptation is how automatically it happens. Most people rarely notice the countless adjustments occurring throughout the visual system every minute. Yet beneath conscious awareness, the eyes and brain remain highly active, constantly responding to changing environmental conditions. The brain also contributes strongly to visual stability during changing conditions. Even though lighting shifts continuously, the brain helps maintain consistent perception of familiar objects and environments. A white wall, for example, usually continues appearing white, whether viewed under sunlight, indoor lighting, or evening shadows, because the brain adjusts interpretation according to context. Researchers often describe this ability as perceptual constancy because the nervous system works continuously to preserve stable awareness despite changing visual conditions. Without this stabilizing process, the world would appear far more chaotic and unpredictable as lighting shifted throughout ordinary life. The visual system must also remain flexible because movement constantly changes incoming information. Turning your head, shifting your eyes, walking through different environments, or watching moving objects all alter the patterns of light reaching the retina. Yet the nervous system continuously reorganizes perception, so awareness remains smooth and coordinated. One especially remarkable thing about biological adaptation is how efficiently it supports survival and interaction with the environment. The ability to function across bright daylight and dim nighttime conditions allows humans to remain visually aware under many different circumstances. Vision therefore reflects not only detection of light, but also constant adjustment to changing surroundings. Scientists studying perception continue discovering how deeply connected visual adaptation is to broader nervous system activity. Attention, expectation, memory, and environmental context all influence how the brain interprets incoming visual information. Perception is therefore shaped not only by light itself, but also by the ongoing activity of the nervous system. The visual system never fully settles into one fixed state because the environment itself continues changing endlessly. Every movement, shadow, reflection, and shift in brightness creates new incoming patterns, requiring adjustment throughout the retina and brain. Adaptation remains continuous because the world remains dynamic. One fascinating truth about sight is that stable perception depends heavily upon constant change happening underneath. Tiny muscular adjustments, retinal sensitivity shifts, nerve activity, and brain interpretation all continue operating every second in order to maintain smooth awareness of the surrounding world. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, your visual system continues adapting quietly to the light around you. Pupils adjust subtly while retinal cells respond to changing brightness, and the brain stabilizes perception of the environment. Without effort or awareness, countless biological systems continue recalibrating vision every second, allowing sight to remain flexible, stable, and responsive throughout waking life. The visual system is one of the few biological systems that remains active almost continuously throughout waking life. Every moment your eyes are open, light continues entering the visual system, while countless cells communicate through chemistry and electricity beneath conscious awareness. Even during quiet rest, the eyes and brain never completely stop processing information from the surrounding environment. One especially remarkable thing about vision is how many different structures must cooperate together at the same time. The cornea guides incoming light, the pupil regulates brightness, the lens adjusts focus, the retina detects patterns of light, while nerve pathways carry electrical signals toward the brain. Deeper visual regions interpret those signals into movement, shape, color, and awareness. Sight depends upon continuous cooperation between all of these systems. The retina itself contains enormous numbers of specialized cells communicating constantly. Rods and cones detect incoming light, while additional retinal cells organize, refine, and coordinate information before it leaves the eye. Every second, electrical activity flows through layered networks of retinal tissue with remarkable speed and precision. Researchers often describe the retina as one of the most metabolically active tissues in the body because its cells consume large amounts of energy continuously. Even while sitting quietly in a dim room, retinal systems remain highly active, responding to changing patterns of reflected light from the environment. Communication between retinal cells happens extremely quickly. Electrical changes inside one group of cells influence neighboring cells almost instantly through interconnected signaling pathways. This allows the visual system to remain highly sensitive to movement, contrast, edges, and changing light conditions throughout the environment. The optic nerves continue carrying visual information toward the brain every second while the eyes remain open. Massive streams of electrical signals move silently through these pathways without interruption. Even ordinary activities such as reading, walking, or glancing across a room require enormous amounts of continuous visual communication throughout the nervous system. One especially fascinating thing about perception is how stable it feels despite the extraordinary amount of activity happening underneath. The visual world appears calm and continuous because the nervous system organizes and smooths incoming information with remarkable efficiency. Hidden biological activity remains invisible to awareness, even though it never truly stops. The brain also plays a major role in maintaining continuous perception. Incoming signals from the eyes are constantly compared, interpreted, and integrated into stable awareness of the surrounding environment. Movement, color, brightness, and spatial relationships are updated continuously as visual conditions change from moment to moment. Humans often think of seeing as passive observation, yet vision is actually an active biological process unfolding continuously throughout the nervous system. The eyes do not merely collect images. Instead, countless cells and pathways cooperate constantly to maintain perception of the outside world. One remarkable aspect of this system is how adaptable it remains. Bright sunlight, dim moonlight, indoor lighting, fog, shadows, and movement all create different visual demands. Yet the nervous system responds automatically, adjusting sensitivity and interpretation without requiring conscious attention. The cooperation between cells is especially important because no individual structure within the visual system works independently. Rods rely on retinal networks. Retinal networks depend on nerve pathways. Brain regions depend on incoming signals from the eyes. Vision emerges only through coordination between many systems operating together simultaneously. Scientists studying neuroscience often describe perception as an emergent process because awareness arises gradually from the combined activity of many interconnected biological systems. Sight is not created in one single location. Instead, it emerges through communication, unfolding across the retina, nerves, and brain together. The visual system also demonstrates how efficiently the body manages enormous amounts of information continuously. Every visible object contributes changing patterns of brightness, movement, texture, color, and contrast. Yet the nervous system organizes this complexity into stable awareness almost instantly. One fascinating truth about vision is that the eyes continue gathering information even when attention drifts elsewhere. The visual system remains active in the background, constantly monitoring movement, light changes, and environmental patterns, whether or not conscious awareness focuses directly upon them. The process never fully pauses while your eyes remain open. Incoming light continues striking retinal cells. Electrical signals continue traveling through nerves. Brain regions continue organizing and interpreting patterns into awareness of the world around you. Vision remains one of the most continuously active systems in the human body. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, countless cells inside your eyes and brain continue communicating with extraordinary coordination. Light enters the visual system, while electrical activity moves silently through retinal layers and nerve pathways toward the brain. Without effort or awareness, your visual system continues operating continuously every second, maintaining the remarkable process of sight through endless biological cooperation beneath the surface of conscious experience. Vision creates one of the strongest connections between the body and the outside world. Every waking moment, reflected light from the environment enters the eyes and becomes part of biological awareness through the activity of the visual system. Mountains, oceans, faces, shadows, written words, moonlight, moving clouds, and distant city lights all reach the brain only after passing through this extraordinary chain of detection, chemistry, electricity, and interpretation. One especially remarkable thing about perception is that the visual world feels immediate and natural, even though it depends upon such immense biological complexity. Most people never notice the countless hidden processes unfolding beneath awareness every second. Yet vision depends upon coordinated activity across the eyes, retina, optic nerves, and brain operating together continuously. The brain receives enormous streams of incoming visual information every moment. The eyes remain open. Patterns of brightness, color, movement, texture, contrast, and depth all arrive together through electrical signaling generated inside retinal cells. The nervous system must constantly organize these changing patterns into stable awareness of the environment. Humans often think of sight as simply observing reality directly, yet perception is deeply shaped by biology. The brain interprets incoming information according to patterns, memory, timing, attention, and previous experience. What you consciously experience as vision reflects the combined activity of many biological systems working together at extraordinary speed. One fascinating aspect of perception is how strongly the brain depends upon interpretation. The nervous system constantly compares incoming signals with stored knowledge about familiar objects, environments, and patterns. Recognition therefore becomes an active process rather than passive observation alone. A familiar face may be recognized instantly, even under changing lighting conditions, because the visual brain continuously searches for meaningful relationships within incoming patterns. The nervous system organizes edges, shapes, movement, and color into recognizable structures almost automatically through years of visual experience and learning. The body itself also influences visual awareness continuously. Eye movements redirect attention. Pupil adjustments regulate brightness. Retinal sensitivity changes according to lighting conditions. Brain activity shapes interpretation depending upon focus, expectation, and surrounding context. Vision therefore reflects constant interaction between the environment and the biology of the observer. Scientists studying neuroscience often emphasize that perception is not a perfect copy of the outside world. Instead, the brain builds useful awareness by interpreting incoming information through biological systems shaped by evolution, learning, and experience. The visible world you experience is therefore deeply connected to the structure and function of the nervous system itself. One especially remarkable thing about the visual system is how stable perception remains despite constant change. Light conditions shift throughout the day. Objects move continuously. Shadows alter appearance. Yet the nervous system adapts constantly in order to preserve smooth awareness of the surrounding environment. The eyes and brain also remain deeply interconnected with other systems throughout the body. Emotional states, attention, fatigue, and biological rhythms may all influence perception in subtle ways. Vision does not operate in complete isolation. Instead, it functions as part of a much larger network of coordinated biological activity. The process of transforming reflected light into awareness never fully stops while the eyes remain open. Incoming light continues reaching the retina every second while electrical activity flows through nerve pathways toward the brain. Signals are organized, compared, interpreted, and stabilized continuously beneath conscious awareness. One fascinating truth about sight is that every visual experience depends upon invisible biological events unfolding inside living tissue. Light itself remains outside the body until retinal cells transform it into electrical activity. From that point onward, perception depends entirely upon communication within the nervous system. Scientists continue studying vision because it remains one of the most sophisticated processes in all of biology. The transformation of light into conscious awareness involves chemistry, electricity, timing, structure, memory, and interpretation, operating together with remarkable coordination and precision. The visible world surrounding you tonight exists as patterns of reflected light moving silently through the environment. Your eyes gather those patterns continuously, while the nervous system transforms them into awareness of space, shape, movement, and color. Every visual experience depends upon this ongoing relationship between the environment and the biology of perception. Even now, as you rest quietly and listen, reflected light continues entering your eyes, while your brain quietly interprets streams of electrical information into awareness of the world around you. Without effort or awareness, countless biological systems continue cooperating every second, transforming light from the environment into the remarkable experience of sight itself. Every visual experience you have ever known begins with light. Sunlight crossing the atmosphere, reflections moving across water, shadows stretching through quiet rooms, candlelight flickering softly at night, distant stars glowing across space, and the faces of other people all become visible only because light travels through the environment and enters the eyes. Yet the remarkable truth is that seeing does not happen inside the world around you. It happens through transformation inside the living systems of the body itself. Throughout tonight's exploration, we have followed the quiet path of vision from reflected light entering the eye to the emergence of awareness deep within the brain. We have seen how the pupil regulates incoming brightness, how the lens carefully focuses light toward the retina, and how specialized retinal cells begin converting physical energy into electrical activity through chemistry unfolding inside microscopic structures. We explored how rods and cones respond differently, depending on brightness and wavelength, allowing the visual system to function across both daylight and darkness. We followed electrical signals moving through layered retinal networks, where information becomes refined and organized before entering the optic nerves and traveling toward deeper visual regions inside the brain. One of the most fascinating truths about vision is that the brain never directly experiences light itself. Instead, the nervous system receives organized electrical patterns generated through retinal activity. From these patterns alone, the brain gradually constructs the experience of shape, movement, color, depth, and awareness that feels so natural during ordinary life. Humans often think of sight as simple observation, yet vision depends upon extraordinary biological coordination, unfolding continuously every second. Chemistry, electricity, timing, structure, movement, interpretation, and memory all cooperate together through immense networks of living cells operating with astonishing precision. The retina and brain remain deeply connected partners throughout this process. The retina gathers and organizes information, while the brain continues interpreting patterns into meaningful perception. Neither structure alone creates sight independently. Vision emerges gradually through cooperation between many interconnected systems working together at remarkable speed. One especially remarkable thing about the visual system is how stable perception feels despite constant environmental change. Light shifts throughout the day, shadows move across landscapes and rooms, eye movements alter incoming patterns continuously, yet the nervous system adapts constantly in order to maintain smooth awareness of the surrounding world. The visual system also demonstrates one of the most extraordinary abilities found anywhere in biology: physical energy traveling through space becomes conscious experience inside the nervous system. Reflected light enters the eyes, triggers molecular reactions, becomes electrical signaling, and eventually contributes to awareness itself. Few processes reveal the connection between physics, chemistry, biology, and perception as clearly as vision. Scientists continue studying the visual system because many aspects of perception remain deeply fascinating even today. The transition from light entering the eye to awareness forming inside the brain represents one of the most sophisticated transformations found in nature. Billions of cells cooperate continuously to support an experience so familiar that most people rarely stop to consider how extraordinary it truly is. Every visible moment in human life depends upon this hidden system. Reading words on a page, recognizing loved ones, watching rain move across glass, seeing moonlight through trees, or noticing colors in a sunset, all rely upon the quiet activity of retinal cells, nerve pathways, and visual brain regions working together continuously. The process never fully stops while the eyes remain open. Incoming light continues reaching the retina, while electrical signals move rapidly through the nervous system toward the brain. Perception remains dynamic because the environment itself constantly changes. Vision, therefore, depends upon endless adaptation and coordination, unfolding silently beneath awareness. One fascinating truth about sight is that the visible world you experience feels immediate, even though it is built gradually through countless biological events happening with extraordinary speed. Light becomes chemistry. Chemistry becomes electricity. Electrical patterns become perception. Perception becomes conscious awareness of the world surrounding you. Tonight, reflected light still moves quietly through the room around you. Your eyes continue gathering information while retinal cells generate electrical signals deep inside the visual system. The brain continues organizing those signals into stable awareness of shape, movement, color, and space. Without effort or awareness, billions of tiny biological events continue unfolding every second, transforming invisible waves of light into the remarkable experience of sight itself. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you enjoyed learning about the biology of the eye and the extraordinary process that transforms light into vision inside the human nervous system. Good night.